Brought to you by Purina Dog Chow. Make sure you... Wait, this isn't it. We're back on Z-Man, not Purina, but we're back on Z-Man's show. We're here to talk the Cloverfield movies, mainly the new one, Cloverfield Paradox.
Yep, on Netflix.
Netflix, 2018 movie.
Yeah, I think it was just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, so there's probably a ton of reviews out there, but we're going to talk just briefly about the first two and how these all kind of work together and complement off each other one way or another. So, first one we had the first Cloverfield, 2008. It was a very cool. It was it was the shaky cam.
Yeah.
You're trying to follow this story again. The beginnings kind of throws you off a little bit. You're like, where are we going with this, guys?
Yeah. A lot of characters jumping around.
You got T.J. Miller. He's the comedy element, and he's being the total jackass.
Yep.
They're giving the send off to the main character, and he has a twin brother, and they have girlfriends, this and that. So, anyways. Kind of following this love story / whatever, and all of a sudden this monster pretty much appears. They believe it's come from under the water, which later we find other things that maybe it was actually sent down because of certain things that happen in other movies. But they're trying to survive and make it through New York, right? And I guess the main character's goal is to try and get to his girl, to try and save her. Because they had been on the kind of outs a little bit, and she's dating some other guy, and she's all alone, I think, and she's trapped in her apartment, or her high-rise apartment building, which is actually partially collapsed and everything. But it's this cool journey watching these 3 or 4 characters run through this city, and this monster, meanwhile, is just destroying everything. I mean, it's super huge. I mean, taller than any building we probably even ever have.
And what I liked most about this movie is you never really got to see a good glimpse, right? Like
an arm here.
They would show pieces of the monster just to show you the size and scale. Obviously, the sounds and the noises it was making was like, oh my god,
just huge.
And
the army rolling around.
Yeah. So it was well done in that sense because it didn't just show you straight out. It was like it left a lot to your imagination.
What I really loved about this one is just knowing, because I do some of the special effects work with some of the other stuff. Not that I am a full-on artist, but the idea that they were working off of the shaky cam, which, by the way, it's true, the shakiness was probably added in post to make it look even worse.
Yeah.
When they run around, but. How in the heck did they get all of those CGI-filled scenes into? Because motion makes CGI a goddamn nightmare. That's all it is. So you got to do all this tracking and craziness, and it looked legit. And when those tanks were rolling in, they're firing off the rounds, and the army, I mean, they're not firing real bullets, obviously, or they might have been doing blanks, but in New York, I mean, you even wonder, they might think a damn riot's going on, even if you're doing a film.
Yeah.
But very cool movie. It follows them. They had some really neat scenes with kind of confusing ones. There were like these bug kind of drone looking things that would fall off of the monster, and I guess if you got bit, it meant really bad things, because the one girl, which you I think you mentioned earlier, but anyways, she has dark hair. She gets bitten, and eventually they get down into this kind of underground bunker after they get out of the sewers railway area, and they said she's bitten. We have to quarantine her, and everybody. There's a lot going on in the scene, so you don't really know fully what's happening. And they take her into this back area where all the kind of blurred out screens are, and then suddenly as they're talking, this explosion happens behind this, and this blood just goes, and it was her for sure. So whatever these things do when they bite you is not good.
Not good.
And I wish we could have actually seen a little bit more on that, but we didn't. But overall, pretty darn cool movie.
Pretty cool movie.
So, but that was amazing. And then we moved into 10 Cloverfield Lane. So 8 years later.
8 years later, yeah.
Took a little bit.
Yeah.
So I know Dustin didn't fully see this one. I was just going to give a quick synopsis. So you have Mary Elizabeth is it Olmsted? Oh, so. Yeah, he's either way. You know what I'm talking about.
Something like that.
Yeah. And you have John Goodman and this other guy, and they're basically in this bunker, right? So Mary Elizabeth was on her way somewhere when this all went down, right? And she gets into this car crash, and the next thing she knows, she wakes up and she's in this bunker. And John Goodman comes in, and she's tied up, and he's serving her food, and he's being cordial and kind and this and that. But of course, so are most guys that usually kidnap their female victims at first or whatever. And so she's freaking out. She doesn't know what's going on. But eventually you start figuring out that some major world disaster has happened. We don't know what exactly yet. And that basically the air is contaminated. And he had built this bunker, survival bunker, tons of food, water, anything you need. He has like his own little pre-made little kitchen area. He's got a little living room, and a separate room for her, which can be locked, by the way. And And then this other guy who used to do some work for John Goodman. John Goodman didn't want to take him in, but I guess out of the goodness of his heart, he let him come down. So you got these three people in this bunker. As the movie keeps unfolding, Mary Elizabeth can't help. She wants to get out and find out what's going on. At times, she thinks she hears like cars above or this or that. And they're out in the cornfield area, so there's not a whole lot of action out there. But she just wants to get out. And then, as the movie keeps progressing, John Goodman just starts acting more and more just creepy. Like, you can tell he says he's lost a daughter, and he shows pictures of her and as he goes along. Well, come to find out, as you move through this movie, so again, I'll spoil this a little bit, this dude has been abducting women. And the picture of the little girl that he said was his daughter was actually a picture of a chick that went missing, many years prior, and the guy like recognized her, the other guy that's down there with him. So once they figure out that John Goodman's no good, they start finding ways to either try and drug him or this or that, and it's just it gets super, like I said, at first you're not sure where the movie's fully going, but it gets super intense. And then by the end, obviously she gets out. I'm not going to say how John Goodman gets it, but dude, still go and watch this one because it's legit.
Yeah, I'll check it out. Yeah.
And so she gets out, and I won't say how she fully gets out, but when she does, there's a spacecraft that's actually, it looks like it's, it produces some kind of weird toxin, which totally contaminates the area. So it's not that all the air up top has been contaminated or that we're totally screwed. It's when this thing finds humans, it releases it, and then it completely infects you, and then within days you die. So she fights this thing off. I think if you want to say maybe the end was the cheesiest part of the movie, just because it's her, just one woman, with barely anything at her disposal, takes on this alien vessel and manages to take it out one way or another. And so, that's a little bit far-fetched. But other than that, the effects were still good-looking, and this the intensity of the scenes in the movie itself. So
Goodman do a good job.
Goodman, yeah. I mean, John's a hard. He's from St. Louis, I think. Yeah. Go St. Louis.
All right.
Karina. You got to throw it out there. So I'm gonna let Dustin start in on the Cloverfield Paradox.
Yeah, so Cloverfield Paradox kind of starts out with a man and a woman in their car sitting in traffic, and she gets a call. You can tell it's kind of from work, but you don't really know what's happening, and they want her to go somewhere, and then they start discussing, and you come to find out she's kind of a researcher, and they're looking for her to go back up into space, and basically the whole gist of the movie is they're trying to create some sort of sustainable energy with this crazy reaction fusion thing out in space, because it's so dangerous that they can't really test it on Earth. They need to go out into space to do it. And the world is kind of going through this energy crisis, right? And that's kind of where it's leading to, is they have to find a solution really fast in order to provide energy for the world. Otherwise, lots of people are going to start dying, which a lot of people already are.
And the wars they're most afraid of, I guess, between Russia and China and other ones, they're like neck and neck ready to start battling for what oil reserves are left. And I think because Russia's are pretty much depleted. So they're down to the wire. A project that was supposed to take, it was supposed to be something small, like 3 to 6 months or something like that. They've been up there 2 years. And it gets worse because I guess every time they fire this reactor, it uses an X amount of fuel, which always made me wonder why couldn't they just come up and keep refueling the station, but maybe that's because resources wouldn't allow it. So they're down to like their last 3 or 4 tries, right? And the movie gets a little bit more in depth, understanding this main female character. So it seems that she lost her son and daughter, which it took me a while to fully understand their relationship. I thought they were just boyfriend and girlfriend and this and that.
I did too.
So that car scene in the beginning, that was husband and wife. And they had a boy and a girl. And it seems at one point in time, she smuggled out one of these power cells, right? To kind of, I guess, power their home and this and that.
Heat their home,
And instead of doing that, it kills it.
Caught on fire, caused a fire in the house. The 2 kids end up dying, and husband and wife made it out.
Super tragic.
Yeah, super tragic. And
so she goes up. He obviously doesn't want her to go, but he says, "But you need to, so other families won't suffer like ours did." So, that's how she gets up into the space station. So there's about 6 or so space station members, and you got a different array of different kind. You got like the comic relief kind of guy, kind of goofy, curly-haired dude.
His name, Chris O'Dowd, is his name. He played in Bridesmaids.
Bridesmaids.
He was the cop. The cop in Bridesmaids. Pretty funny dude.
He was, and he did a pretty good job.
He did a good job. Then you have like the kind of the military style, like Captain. Leader guy.
Very serious stone.
Serious. You have obviously the woman.
Now the Russian, or was a German, the kind of cosmonaut guy who was really intense. Remember, he's the one who has the worms later on.
He's the Russian.
The Russian.
And then.
So he's very intense about certain situations. not happy that the mission's taken so long.
Yeah.
He's definitely bringing a different negative element to the team.
And he's becoming suspicious too of the German guy.
That's right.
Played by Daniel Bruhl. He played Zemo in Civil War and Captain America. Civil
Nice.
War.
Yes.
So
yeah, you're right.
he's kind of the German, and we talked about there's some conflict already happening on Earth with different countries. So Germany and Russia are kind of really heated. So I think these two, it kind of causes some conflict up there where they're kind of suspicious of what's going on.
And what a worse place.
Sabotaging this mission because you want, you're trying to do, I don't know, you're trying to plan something down there with Germany and you're going to invade Russia. Like, there's a lot of like political and type wartime conflicts happening.
And up in space, that's where you want nothing to go down.
Yeah.
You cannot let your psyche start losing it when you're up there being suspicious and this and that. I mean, one wrong move, and there's a scene I think when they actually get into a fight, and it's like when you get to that point, you're in trouble, right? So the movie starts moving on. So they fire this. They fire this reactor again, and they show a cool little kind of foreshadowing of what the possibilities are if they use this thing, and it's a possibility that we could be brought to another world, a paradoxical universe, dimension, where things are different. And by the way, we'll even be able to get back, and what will it do to our world? And anyway, so they fire this thing. And off they go. And when they finally come, and it was cool the way they did it. When they finally go, like everything kind of stopped, and then they lost gravity, and you're just like, oh man, these boys are in trouble, and girls for that matter. And so when they come to, they couldn't find Earth.
Yep.
So literally, they're going to every window, and Earth's not there. So they're like, you felt like
it's missing, and they're like, what's missing?
Yeah, Earth,
and they can't find it. So
you feel like this lost in space kind of.
So what I thought when that happened, I thought they went back in time. And like before Earth was even formed, like in the darkness and blankness of space, and I'm like, oh shit, they went back to like before like the Earth was even formed.
Oh, and that's because there was this gyrosphere, gyrosphere thing that basically allows them to see all the star networks and
kind of acted as a compass, space compass,
and shows where they are compared to Earth and this and that.
And that was missing when they got back.
It went missing. So this weird paradox, not only did it send them to a whole nother level of dimension of Earth and our worlds or whatever. It starts messing with themselves and like the structure of the ship and how things work. And basically, that poor Russian guy, there were these worms that were inside this container. I guess they kept them for maybe experiments or whatever. Somehow these things get inside him, and he started complaining about it, as they were moving through. And he explodes, and all these things come out of him. And then, come to find out, they find out that damn gyrosphere was inside his stomach, which they find out from, again...
Which that was more of a confusing part for me was, I guess when they shifted dimensions, like some of this stuff just kind of integrated into his body.
And I guess it was just random, however it happened.
And they ended up, they hear some noise from coming from the ship, right? And it sounds like a monster or some sort, and that's kind of what they were going for, right? Like some sort of space monster screaming and screeching.
Yeah.
And they come to kind of a panel in the wall, and that's where the sound's coming from, and they're kind of debating, do we open it, do we not open it? And they're like, no, we need to open it. They pull it off, and you find Jensen was her name in the movie. So another scientist who they don't know,
but
is stuck inside this wall with like all these wires kind of stuck through her.
So she came from her world, and like again, and some of the ship infused in her. So they get her out, they get her cleaned up. Come to find out, so there's I think one of the Chinese women that were on she was Chinese or Japanese, but she had roles reversed. So in their world, she was the nuclear physicist person who knew the ins and outs of the reactor and everything. And so she knew the crew. She knew the main character, the captain, all the people. She knew their names except for her.
Except her.
And then in her world, Schmidt, the German, the one who the Russian had kind of dealings with, he was a traitor and was communicating with Germany, I guess, to somehow sabotage the mission so that they could do whatever on Earth. Who knows what?
Yeah.
But so now things are now and the way Schmidt, like his looks and his mannerisms, like you're like, man, maybe,
like, is he really?
Is he even real? So it kept you guessing.
That's when it really, I mean, the whole movie I thought was interesting, and it kept me like super engaged, but this is when it really started to get like, oh damn, like what's going on?
Yeah.
Because you get little hints of these things, right? And you start to figure out piece by piece, like, oh, they could really be doing that. Maybe he is bad. Maybe he is like conspiring with Germany.
And if he was bad there, is there someone else that's really bad there? So it keeps pushing through whatever.
And you don't know if is this the Schmidt from the original universe, or is he from the other universe? Like, which one came back on the ship? And you're like,
know.
You're really like,
they could have messed with us more on that one, which they didn't, and it's probably good because it might have gotten a little too confusing. But By the time they start figuring what's going on and we lose a few team members along the way, maybe one of the cheesier parts of the movie, in my opinion. I know this kind of, we talked about this, but what's his face from Bridesmaid? Chris O'Dowd. He's over working on this panel trying to get things ready to go because I think they're losing heat and whatever. And suddenly his arm gets sucked into this little porthole panel that's just part of the ship, and he's like, okay, and he can't get it out. He's trying to pull it, and then he gets sucked in more, and he gets sucked in more. And what ends happening is his arm gets sheared off, but yet he's not in pain.
Yeah.
And
there's no blood.
And the arm just drops, and then it starts moving on its own. So they trap the arm, this and that. So I guess however this world's going, this morphine or whatever's going on, like it doesn't affect you, I guess, in a pain sort of way, but it can affect your total
like
physical makeup.
Took part of his arm, detached it, and put it into like a separate.
So there's a scene where the arm's just kind of tapping along. In fact, it writes the message that tells the crew where the gyrosphere is, which now you're kind of like. So some people, maybe start losing the movie around there. I can understand that, but it's kind of intrigued me. Like, okay, where are we going with this? But they find the gyro. They find where they are. They're on the other side of the sun. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned the sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth. Well, they're on the other side. So of course they didn't see anything on that side. So they start figuring things out, and then basically the lead character, which I'm forgetting her name, is
it's Hamilton. Yeah.
She finds out that her family is still alive and well on Earth currently.
Yeah.
So now comes this huge moral dilemma. She's basically finding out. So their plan is basically to try and refire this reactor to send them back to their universe. But before they do, they will eject Jensen back to Earth. So they'll travel over
Earth 2. We'll call
Earth 2.
Yeah.
So
we'll call it Earth 1 and Earth 2.
Earth 2.
So Earth 2, where Jensen came from, Hamilton is very good. They're very good friends. And Hamilton's kids are still alive.
Yep. And so, but when she finds this out, now she's caught with the dilemma. I want to see my family. I want to be with them. And foremost, let them know not to steal that power cell and try to power their home. So now you got this huge dilemma. It makes you think, what would you do in that situation? Be able to see your kids again?
Yeah.
Woo! That's a big one.
Yeah, but then you got to think you're leaving your husband on Earth 1.
Yeah.
Alone.
Yeah.
And then if you do go to Earth 2, you're already there.
And she's already there. So what do you think? You're just gonna be like the surrogate sister or mother or whatever you are? Yeah.
And maybe it's worth it just to see your kids again and know that they're still safe there.
I don't know. I think that'd be more painful for me to know that my other self.
Be on the outskirts.
I mean, if anything, it might drive you to maybe want to kill that person so that you can take that spot. There's nothing good that's going to come from it. I mean, to see him, it's just going to make it worse. So, anyways, she starts contemplating this and they're moving on, but then things get really jacked up as Jensen starts to realize if she takes. So the idea was that she was going to take the technology backed up on a drive, take that back down to Earth so that they could recreate the whole reactor spaceship system and then try and save. But in their world, on Earth 2 world, they're already at war. Things are already going down. Millions are dying. It's on like, if there's 4 phases, they're already on like late phase 3 before shit really gets nasty. Yep. So Jensen has to figure out, if I let this ship go, my world will most likely die. So she starts sabotaging the damn mission. Yeah. So
because she wants to keep that station in the Earth 2 universe and get it back to Earth or near Earth so that they can use
to save them. But then if they save them, now our world is screwed. Yeah. So it's this going back and forth. What do we do? And luckily enough, Hamilton, the lead female character, she's able to fight off Jensen. So there's some really cool choreographed scenes between the fights between Jensen and Hamilton. And then eventually Jensen gets killed in a pretty cool and graphic way. Actually, couldn't help it. I was thinking of Alien Resurrection when it happened. But basically a shot gets fired off into the hull. Mm-hmm. And the air just totally sucks Jensen to the edge of the wall. And she's crying out for help. And I'm like, by this time, I'm like, you've killed several crew members. Right. You tried to kill her. We don't have sympathy for you anymore, girl. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. And she just gets blasted out. And so from there.
Yeah, so that leaves basically Schmidt and Hamilton alive.
Schmidt's wounded really badly.
Throughout that whole kind of process, so Schmidt's girlfriend on the ship, the Asian engineer scientist, figured out why the reactor wasn't working, and it was the core needed to be vented. There was too much moisture. So they fired the machine again to get them back to.
So they have 2 firings left at this point. They had 3 when they started. So they have 1 to go to Earth 2, 1 to go back to Earth 1. They make it back. Again, just Hamilton and Schmidt. And
then they vent the core as they had recommended and fired the machine again. And
they get a full charge.
Voila, we get sustainable energy. things work out well for Earth 1. Earth 2 screwed, but
Yeah, well, we may be screwed too, though. We can say we because we're Earth 1. We're Earth 1 here.
We're on the Earth 1 team.
So what we forgot to talk.
But also, I was
go
going to say,
ahead.
she was able to get a message off to
the
Hamilton of Earth 2.
She did.
So she sent a kind of a vlog message to herself on Earth 2 saying,
Don't.
Whatever you do, don't steal any of this tech and to try to heat your home. Trust me, it's going to end badly for you.
Which bothered me at first, and I think I might just answer my own question in my head, but I was thinking to myself, they couldn't get the communications going with Earth by the time they got to Earth 2, I guess because they were on the other side of the sun, but maybe that's why. But I'm just trying to figure out, I don't remember them actually traveling over to Earth 2, so how did they get communications going?
Yeah.
Anyways, a small little miss, I think, on the writer and director's part.
Yeah,
but either way, let's just say that she gets the message through. Hopefully it gets to her, so her family at least has a chance to be saved on that world. And she comes to terms with that, which is awesome. And she's the hero and gets the ship back to save Earth 1.
Yeah.
Problem is, we might already be screwed because the original... So when they hit that first firing, which sent them to the Paradox other universe, whatever happened there opened some kind of hole or whatever like that, which my cousin brought to my attention. Thank you, Brian. It was also in Dead Nightmare. Go check it out. I love these hits. He saw a flash, the very, very end footage on the camcorder. He said there's a flash of light that comes down around, I guess, when they were on the bridge. I don't know if it was the Brooklyn Bridge or whatever, but there's a flashlight. That was, I think, the monster coming down from this hole that opened up that basically let these monsters come through, and thus, which connects finally the 2008 Cloverfield to the Cloverfield Paradox in 2018. And then that's where 10 Cloverfield Lane, the story's kind of segmented on its own, but I think it's the point that whatever those aliens are there, they might be part of this other dimension that they made their way in. So who even at this point, who even knows how many crazy things made it through to our world?
Yeah.
So as they're once they fire the reactor on the Earth 1, everything's saved. Yay, the energy's back. They're being fired down in an escape pod going down, and there's this kind of cool scene where the husband he goes, "You haven't told them yet. Tell them not to come back down." He's yelling, "Don't come back down!" Yeah. Which I'm thinking to myself, what else are they gonna do? Stay up on the ship? You know? I mean, I'd rather either come down and have a fighting chance on Earth as die starving on a space station. Yeah. But and as the pod's going down, there's this cool scene way up in the clouds, and it's the monster, obviously from Cloverfield 1. Yeah. And so pretty cool connections. Overall, we gave this movie.
Gave it a 7.
Nice
solid
7.
movie, and again, Netflix original content, which they're really they're making a lot of good content.
There's so much stuff. I mean, I know you have it. You tell me about it, and I go out and find it on the internet where I can. But it's amazing how much stuff they have out there.
So much stuff, and
I can't keep up.
So what this movie get on IMDb?
5.6.
5.6.
That's user rating.
User rating, which I don't get a lot of the criticism. Like we kind of had some criticism there on some parts that maybe didn't make sense.
Yeah.
But overall, the production of this movie, the acting, all of it was really solid.
The ship, the scenes, everything. I mean, high content because everything looked really cool. Not like the gritty like Aliens or some of the other Starship. They're just. This one was clean. It looked crisp and new and whatnot, and the lighting and. Anyways, just everything in general.
Yeah, it was well done, and it was interesting. It made you think. I think the paradox in the title was fitting because it's like, what do? Your world is starving. You're in this crisis. You can go up into space and fire this thing off, where you have these people warning about these other effects. But it's like, if you don't do it, then
you're gone
what's
anyways.
the alternative? Yeah. So you do it, and you end up causing these other issues. But what choice do you have? So it was an interesting
hard place.
And there are other paradoxes in between that, like with Earth 2 and Jensen, and kind of what's she gonna do? Yeah. Her paradox is we have this opportunity to bring this technology back to my Earth.
We were talking about this. We might do this as a future episode. Where we're talking for movies that actually have a cool premise where it puts you at that point. Like, what would you do in this situation? I think this calls for it. If you knew your two girls were down there, I mean, obviously the message thing would have been awesome, but let's go back to it. I don't think they could have made communications. Yeah. So let's say you knew there is like a 5% chance you're actually going to be able to get through to them, but you know that your world's going to die on the other end. See your family or save the world.
Yeah, I don't know.
That is so tough, and I don't think we can even answer this on. But I mean, we leave it to you guys. Please say in the comments. Let us know, what would you do in this situation? This is like the biggest morality type question. Yeah. It's that thing like kill one to save millions type kind of situation where it's like most people would say no. I love that in The Last of Us, which I don't know if you made all the way through the end, but the point is they're at a point where they might actually kill Ellie. and to possibly save millions. It's not guaranteed.
Right.
So would you sacrifice one? And by the way, the story you built with this character and whatever, and like you said, your own family. Would you sacrifice your own child if you knew you could save the world? I'll tell you right now, no.
No.
I would not.
Yep.
There's no way, and you'll have to kill me.
But I'm
to
thinking
do it.
as Jensen even, what would you do in that situation where you come into the ship
Man,
and you have an
that's
opportunity
almost
to
even
take
worse.
this technology and save your planet, all the people you know and care about, and you have to basically kill off these 5 or 6 people that really aren't people that you know, really. They're from
Yeah.
a different universe.
So this is
Would
where
you take that action to
Okay.
save your planet?
I'll answer this one because this is where my selfishness will fully come out. I would have.
I think I would
I would
probably
have.
be in
I
the
would have
same-
tried to do
yeah.
the exact same thing she did.
Yeah.
I would have tried to kill the crew and commandeer the ship to take it back. She could have done all that too because
Yeah.
she was one of the top lead. I think she could pilot. She could do all
Right.
the reactor. I think I would have done it.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
So it's that crazy morality question
Yeah.
that in which you say, well, you're kind of a hypocrite, right? You're saying you wouldn't kill your own, but now you're willing to murder 5 others. Yeah, because we are all about usually our own personal reasons, which makes all the more sense when you watch shows like The Walking Dead and these other things where you're like, why are people so brutal? Because when it comes down to it, we are about survival and number one plus your maybe immediate family or a couple close friends. And
Those are
everybody
just
else.
instincts ingrained in our body. That's human nature.
And that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's which we're gonna get to on our next episode. We're gonna talk about one of our next couple two that come out. We're gonna talk about Darren Warren's The Push.
Yeah, Darren Brown.
Oh, Brown. Shoot,
Darren
sorry,
Brown's
sorry,
The Push,
sorry,
yeah.
Darren. But
Yeah.
Darren Brown's The Push, and where we're gonna talk about where he actually tries to coerce somebody to commit murder, and it's a wild thing. I hope you guys get to make it back out and check it out. We'll have it out probably in the next week minimum.
But
So-
yeah, Cloverfield Paradox.
Yeah.
Give it a look if you have Netflix or you have access. Check
Yeah.
it out. If you've seen it and you have thoughts, let us know in the comments.
Yeah, please talk about it because we talk a lot of cool concepts here. I really want to
I
hear
thought it
some
was well
comments.
done. I don't get the
Yeah,
some of
the-
the hate I'm seeing online. But
Yeah, the low user rate doesn't make much sense. I think people expect way too much out of movies
Yeah.
these days. That's just on a little side. We're not going to go on a rant on it, but that's another time. But I just, guys, these are kind of cool original ideas in one way or another because it's all been done. We're just kind of meshing it and turning it a little bit and trying to spin it back out and hopefully people enjoy it. And I got to admit, this one was one of them. I enjoyed it.
I did too.
So thanks for joining us on ZMM Zombies, Movies, and More. Check us out next time. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.